So I'm jumping back over here to my content-sidebar.css file, and these are the places that I need to make those adjustments. So first of all, we'll leave content area with a float left, and we're going to change this to a 70, not 700%, 70% margin, or I mean width. And down here for the site content widget area, I'll just comment this out for right now. So I'll leave that there, but I'll just comment it out for a moment. And I'll leave the overflow set to hidden, that's fine. If you want to change that at some point, you can. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to leave it that way just in case I have other floated elements inside of my widget area. That's probably a good idea, right? Because later if I decide to make some sort of widget that if I decide to have it go down below at the bottom of the page, and there are multiple widgets, if I want them, for instance, to have any kind of floated stuff, the parent needs to be hidden. So I'll just leave that there. And then I'm going to change this width to 30%. And I'm going to leave the site footer alone for right now. And we can just do that as a test. Oh, and then let's just go ahead and for right now, we'll just say the margin is 0. And for this one, let's just say the margin is 0. We can come back and change that. In fact, in case later we want to use all 4 of these places as placeholders, I'll just have all 4 of these placeholders say 0 instead of using shorthand. So I'm going to save that, and unfortunately I can't just do the put thing, it's not working. So I'm going to go ahead and you can either use FileZilla or like I said before, you can go into your cPanel and you can make the update. And again, if you want, you can create an old version of your style sheet that you're going to upload. And remember, it's not the normal style sheet, it's the layouts. So I'm going to go inside of layouts. And I didn't really make that much of a change, so I'm not going to bother. Let's go ahead and do upload. I'm not going to bother to create an old version of it as a backup. Maybe if I made more substantial changes, I would. So anyway, I'm just going to upload it this way. And I'm going to click on override existing files. That's going to be important. And let's go into layouts and then content sidebar. We'll open that and it says it's done. We can go back here to our normal thing and we can test it in this browser window. Let's do a refresh. And I didn't change the background colors. If you want to do that, you can. So, the background color should change for me, and yeah, it disappeared. But you can see that after taking those things off, you can see that I do still, in fact, have this floating thing, right? And you can see it starts to break down a little bit. Well, actually a lot, so there's that. And then we'll have to do media queries. And a lot of people would say, okay, well, let's do a min width, a max width at this point because we already have this set up. But I'm going to suggest that you do a mobile first approach so that this would actually be the stuff that would be in the media query, or at least some of this, so that your floats are not active in your original mobile layout. So let's jump back over here to Dreamweaver. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set up something, and I'll explain to you what I'm doing. So we're going to set up a basic framework for first loading all of our original styles that are going to work on the smallest screens, so that those will work up to 480 pixels. And I figured out where my breakpoints were, and the way that you can kind of figure that out, just so you know, is if you go here and let's go ahead and do an inspector, and this way you can start to figure out where your breakpoints are, and you can see, like, as I go lower, 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 and lower, and so on, somewhere around, and maybe I even want it higher than this, but let's just start here for like 768 right now. And I can always go back and change that. I guess I could do it around 800. I think the book has like 768, but I can go ahead and do this because I'm also going to style other things differently, but we can always go back and change this later. Let's start with 768 as one of the breakpoints. So that means that we're going to do anything that is between 481 pixels as a minimum width and a maximum width of 768 pixels. That would be sort of our quote-unquote tablet styles. It would be kind of an in-between style. And then anything pretty much larger than set with its 769 or larger would be our desktop styles. And then later, if you wanted, you could make like a super size that's anything that's, say, I don't know, larger than like 1280 or 1600 or something. If your design really breaks down on very large screens, you could do something even bigger than that. And what we're going to look for are a lot of these, basic pieces of information. Let's just take this. I'm going to cut this whole thing right now, and I'm going to put all of that in my default mobile styles. And what I want to pay attention to are some simple facts. Like, one of the things that's not going to work in a mobile view, like a really narrow mobile view, would be this floating behavior. I don't think that that's going to work. And so some of this stuff, like with content and all of that, it's not going to work. So if I'm just going to copy this for a moment. And you know what? And I think I actually like, if we look at 769, kind of, that's our biggest screen dimension. I don't want anything to start floating any sooner than that, for sure. I might even adjust this to make it go a little bit higher. What I want to do is I want to copy, actually, let's just copy the content area for right now. Let's copy that, and we're going to paste it down inside of the desktop media query. And to clean it up in Dreamweaver, if I select this stuff, I can just hit tab and it tabs in so that it's easily visible that it's inside of my media query. And let's just leave that there for a second. And then the other thing that we know we're going to change will be, for sure, we might change the site main margin, maybe. We'll take a look. But we also know for sure that we're going to change the content widget width. So let's copy that, and we're going to paste that down here inside of the media query too. And let's go ahead and tab it in. Okay. And that's what we want it to look like. We've already decided we want these widths for the columns that way on larger screens. But on the smaller ones, I want the content area to take up 100%. And here we've got this float that's saying float left. Well, we can get rid of that, but the problem is if you completely delete this at this point, once it goes and it hits the larger float screen, it's not going to undo the float if we go back down to a smaller viewport, like on a desktop screen. For instance, like, even if we didn't have this float here because we just literally removed this entire line, once we go up here, right, to a larger screen, then what would happen is that this float left would kick in. Okay, but then if we were to scale it back down, right, if we don't have anything here telling us what to do with a float, then it's still gonna, that float would stay there, right? Okay, so what we need to do is actually say float none. All right, and that will reset anything once we scale it back down from a larger screen dimension to a smaller screen dimension. So yeah, that's what we would need to do there. And I can also get rid of this float right. Let's just go ahead and delete that. I think there's one down here too. All right. And the other thing that we could do is on the site content widget area, we have a width of 30%. Let's go ahead and change that to 100% also for the mobile view, so it takes up the full dimension. Now let's just go ahead and save that, and we can upload it and see where we are with it so far. Here, let me just pull this back out, and I went ahead and I left this here so that I could just easily constantly upload stuff. And I have override existing changes. Okay, so it uploaded again. I'm not going to close this because the server's so slow, it's making it easier if I don't. And then I'll come back over here, and just so you can like see it immediately, I'll go ahead and I'll have this on a small screen, and I'll do my hard refresh. And it's taken a second. Okay, and so here's what we've got. And you'll also notice that something else is kicking in where it says primary menu. Nothing is happening because we haven't put any kind of, we haven't worked with any of this yet. But that menu is collapsing into something called primary menu. And then once I get large enough, you see that it opens up. It's no longer the primary menu button any longer. So we'll deal with that later. But if I keep going, then we get our floated sidebar, okay? And so we also need to deal with like some other things like, margins and stuff like that. And one of the things I'm going to really try to encourage you to do is, use the inspector as much as you can. And the reason for that is because it's going to help you see things live so that you're not constantly having to change it, upload, save it, and then see what it looks like. You can get a sense of what it's going to look like just by modifying the inspector properties. So let's just go here and we'll inspect something. And it drilled all the way down to a list item. So if it's easier, you could just click out here somewhere and it'll go up higher. But you can just kind of scroll up in the tree here and go where it says secondary. And if you want to apply some padding on it, let's just take a look and see what we've got down here. So it would be the min width 769 media query that we would need to target. And now you might look at that and start adding your padding right here. But the thing is that we're also going to need padding down here as well, you know, so that let's just scroll all the way down, and this is where it got demoted. So we still need padding here as well, right? So it's not that we don't need padding on the mobile view at all, right? So what we can do is go ahead and put our padding down here at the bottom, and then we'll see if it doesn't look good on the larger view, right? Because this is the one that's going to take precedence. And then we can decide if we want to make it different. So we'll say padding, and oops, it disappeared on me. So let's try that again, padding. And then we can just try like 1M and just see, and it bumps it off the edge. Now, one of the things that you also might want to, as a reminder, you might want to do is go ahead and add a background color so you can kind of see what the space is that's being taken. Let's say Alice Blue for the bottom part, or for the sidebar. And then if we kind of come up here, we can find our primary area, and then let's give that a background color so that we can see the difference. And I think we used antique white for that. And then if you scroll up, you'll see that that is distinctly different. Now, you might want to add this padding here directly also. Let's say padding, let's say 1M. You could do rem as well, and you can see what the difference looks like, right? And it's much smaller. So I think I'm going to stick with M here. And we could see what that padding looks like on both of those, right? And then the other thing too that you might want to consider is, depending on what your design is going to be, you might want to also mess around with the site main right here. If you look at site main, that was one of the other things that, if you look at our Dreamweaver, we had something that was already designated for site main, and so we could mess around maybe with the margins on that or the padding on that. And so let's go ahead for the default. Let's just leave the margin at 0 for right now. Let's add a padding of let's just try like 3M and see what that does. And then I think that probably we're going to need a little bit more padding on a larger view. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to come down to, and we don't have site main down here. So let's copy the whole rule, and let's come down, and we're going to add it right here. I like to keep everything in order, the order that you see it, if possible, in the actual HTML. And so instead of 3M, we'll do it at 4M. Oh, and actually, the other thing that I wanted to do, I forgot real quick, is let's go ahead and give a background color. Let's just do it in the mobile view. So let's say background. Let's give it to the content area as well as the widget area. So I think for the content area, we said antique white or something like that. Antique white, or you could just pick a color. Because this one's not actually finding it. Let's just do, I don't know, CCC, right? For that's like a gray color. And then if you wanted to actually find an actual color, you could do a control click on it and say quick edit, and then you could actually just pick some sort of color if you wanted. So if we wanted it to be sort of like a pale yellow, just so that we could easily see it, that would be fine. All right, let's do that. And then for the background on the widget area, we'll say background. And I am going to do Alice Blue because it's an easy one for me to remember. I think the other one was antique white. But anyway, we'll just save that. And let's do an upload now. Okay, and so I'll select my file again. Let's do this whole thing again. Okay, and then it finished. And so let's go test our site. And Let's do a refresh. Okay, and so now there's that updated yellow color. So now what we've got is, here, let's just close this for a second. We've got our padding, right? This is on our mobile view. We've got our padding, and down here, it looks like something happened where it got messed up down here. Let's see what it is that we did. So that was on our site content widget area. Oh, I see what it is. We actually didn't put any kind of padding on the actual widget area. We just put a padding on site main. And if you wanted to go back and take a peek, let's do this really fast. Let's go back. Hold on. Let's take a peek here. Inspect. And there we go. So here we've got our secondary. Here's our primary, and our site main is inside of the content area. That's the primary area. So that actually isn't affecting our secondary area. So it's really important that if we wanted that additional padding inside the secondary area, that we not forget to pad that as well. So we can go ahead and copy this, and let's just pad that as well. Save that. And if you wanted to just double check, you could come down here and you could literally just add the padding. That's where I forgot to add it. Say 3M. Okay, and then you see that it's also padded now, and that is a little bit better. And then if we open this back up, whenever it starts to cascade, you see that we've got a much better looking organization, right? And that starts to look a little bit more like a normal website. So I think that the other thing that we want to do then is go ahead and save that. We would upload it, and then of course you could get rid of these background colors, but if you want to just leave them there until you're ready to actually do something real with it, you can. It'll help you see what you're doing. Okay.